Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're taking a close look, really getting into a scenario most of us have probably dealt with at some point, a visit to the eye doctor. Our source material for this deep dive is actually a transcript originally put together to help with English vocabulary. But for you, our mission here is to, go deeper. We want to pull out those really important bits of knowledge, maybe some surprising facts about eye care and the language used around it. Basically help you get well informed, quickly and thoroughly.
That's exactly right. We're using this very common experience as a sort of lens, you could say, to really dissect the nuances of everyday language, the kind you'd actually hear in a real situation. We'll connect the dots between just how we talk about vision and, well, the practical information, what's really going on with our eyes.
Okay, great. So let's dive right into the story. It's about Arthur. He ends up at the eye doctor's because he's been getting these persistent headaches. And maybe more worryingly, he was really struggling to see things clearly that were far away. Now, what's quite interesting here is Arthur's reaction. He was genuinely surprised because, he claimed, he'd always had 20/20 vision. Quite a shock for him, I imagine.
Oh, absolutely. And, the doctor's first take on it is often that first clue. In Arthur's case, the doctor says something like, sounds like you might be farsighted. Now, this actually brings up a super common point of confusion because Arthur's main symptom, struggling to see things far away, that's typically characteristic of nearsightedness or myopia, where distant stuff looks blurry, farsightedness, hyperopia, that's usually where you see distant things okay, but you struggle with things up close.
Ah, okay.
So the doctor's initial comment there, it's an interesting point about how easily these terms can get kind of mixed up in just casual chat, even if the diagnosis later clarifies it.
That is a really crucial distinction.
Wow.
It really shows how important getting the terms right is.
Yeah.
So, okay, after that initial thought from the doctor, they do the classic eye chart test.
Mm.
Arthur has to cover one eye, read the letters, and he really had to, struggle through it. He's calling out HXER3. Then he gets to question mark, and I can't quite make out the other symbol, but I think it's the peace sign.
Right. Not exactly nailing it.
Not at all. And the doctor's reaction was pretty blunt, just, quote, wow, Arthur, you're as blind as a bat.
Doesn't mince words.
No. And Arthur, to his credit, was quite honest back. He agreed, saying his vision was really blurry at times. And, to really highlight just how bad things had gotten for Arthur, after the eye chart, the doctor's writing up the prescription and tells him, head over to the other room and pick out some frames.
Standard procedure.
Right. But Arthur, apparently completely thrown off by his poor vision, thanks the doctor, and then walks straight into the bathroom. Yeah. It's kind of funny, but it's also a really memorable detail that just perfectly shows how much trouble he was having seeing clearly.
It really does paint a picture. And this whole scenario gives us a fantastic way into looking at some key vocabulary and phrases. Maybe we can start by unpacking some of those basic words that describe Arthur's experience.
Perfect. Yeah, let's do that. So when Arthur was struggling to see things that are far away, what does struggle really mean there? More than just difficult.
Yeah, struggle implies more effort, right? It means he had significant difficulty, a really hard time. He needed to try really hard to see clearly. But it's not just physical struggle, You can struggle with a math problem or struggle to understand something. It basically describes facing a real challenge or resistance.
Okay, that makes sense. And that ties right into him saying his vision was really blurry at times. What's the core meaning of blurry?
Blurry is simply not clear, or, you can't really see it well. Visually speaking, it means the light isn't focusing properly on the retina, so you get these fuzzy, indistinct images. It's that annoying feeling where all the sharp edges just kind of melt away.
Got it. And the doctor mentions writing a prescription for Arthur. We all sort of know what that is, but specifically in this context.
Right. So a prescription, it's that official note, that written order from a doctor. It could be for medicine or a treatment plan or, like here, for corrective lenses, glasses, or contacts. It's the formal instruction you take to the pharmacy, or in this case, the optician, to get the specific thing you need based on the doctor's diagnosis.
Right, turning the diagnosis into the solution.
Exactly.
Okay, so that covers the symptoms and the fix. But let's get into the specific language of vision now, because this is where, as we saw with Arthur and the doctor, things can get a bit mixed up. Let's start with 20/20 vision. What does that actually mean?
Yeah, that's a great one. So 20/20 vision is basically the standard for, let's call it, perfect or normal visual acuity, how sharp your vision is. It means that you, standing 20 feet away from an eye chart, can see clearly what a person with normal vision is expected to see at that same 20 feet distance. So if you have 20/20, you generally don't need glasses to see things far away clearly. You see details as expected. It's like the benchmark.
The benchmark. Okay, so Arthur thought he had that.
He thought he did, yeah.
But the doctor's initial comment, even if it was maybe phrased confusingly, suggested there was a problem. You mentioned that common mix-up earlier between nearsighted and farsighted. Can you just clarify those again, especially since Arthur's symptom was trouble seeing things far away?
Absolutely. Let's clear that up. When Arthur struggled to see distant things, like the eye chart, he was showing symptoms of nearsightedness. The technical term is myopia. With nearsightedness, things close up are clear, but distant objects look blurry. That's because the light focuses in front of the retina, not directly on it.
Okay, in front. Got it.
The opposite condition is farsightedness, or hyperopia. With farsightedness, you can often see distant objects quite clearly, but things up close become blurry or hard to focus on. That's because the light focuses behind the retina.
Behind the retina. Okay.
So while the doctor initially said farsighted, Arthur's actual symptoms, the difficulty seeing far off, that points towards nearsightedness. It really highlights why that professional diagnosis is so important, to move past the sometimes confusing everyday language.
That's incredibly helpful. Seriously clears things up.
Okay.
Okay, now let's maybe shift gears a bit to some of those common phrases and idioms that popped up, the ones that made the language feel more, alive and conversational.
Good idea. The first one, make out, is really relevant here. It means to see clearly, or maybe to discern something, especially when it's a bit difficult. Like in the transcript examples, I can't make out what this says, the writing is too small.
Right.
Or, if you look carefully, you can almost make out a few of the stars. It's about managing to see something despite challenges.
Like Arthur trying to make out the peace sign symbol.
Exactly. Or like asking someone, can you see what's written on that sign way over there? No, I can't quite make it out.
Perfect. And then there was the doctor's very direct comment. Arthur was as blind as a bat. That's a classic idiom, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. Blind as a bat is a very common English idiom. It just means you can't see very well at all, or your vision is extremely poor in that moment. It's an exaggeration, of course. It doesn't mean the person is literally, legally blind.
Right, not sightless.
No, but it vividly captures that state of being really visually impaired or disoriented, like Arthur walking into the bathroom instead of the frame room. It's just a memorable way to describe someone having serious trouble seeing, much more intense than just saying blurry.
Yeah, really paints a picture.
Mm-hmm.
But these phrases, they're not just for eye doctor visits, are they? They pop up in everyday conversation a lot, like when you're just trying to figure out what's going on with someone or something.
Exactly. The doctor started with what seems to be that phrasing, what seems to be the problem, or what seems to be the matter, what seems to be the trouble. It's a really useful, quite polite way of asking what's wrong or what's the issue here. It's open-ended, invites the other person to explain. Very common.
Very useful. And speaking of useful directions, we heard the doctor use head on.
Yes, head on, combined with a direction like in, out, or up. It's a very natural, quite informal way to tell someone where to go. Like the examples given, head on into the house, it's going to rain.
Or let's head on out to the park.
Right. Or head on up to my room, I'll be there in a second. It just adds this casual, friendly feel to giving directions.
Yeah.
Very conversational.
Definitely. So, okay, let's bring this all back to you, the listener. How does understanding all these specific vision terms, the difference between nearsighted and farsighted, these colorful idioms like blind as a bat, even simple direction phrases, how does it actually help you in your daily life? Maybe understanding a doctor better, or following a TV show conversation, or just finding the right words to describe what you're experiencing.
Well, I think knowing these specific terms and expressions gives you a much richer, more precise understanding, not just of vision-related talk, but communication generally, especially around problems and solutions. You move beyond just recognizing the words to really grasping their meaning, their nuance, how they're used. And this boost in vocabulary, it doesn't just help you understand others better. It helps you articulate your own experiences, your own observations with more clarity and confidence. It ultimately makes you more informed and, frankly, more effective communicator in all sorts of situations.
And that really wraps up our deep dive for today into the world of eye care and all the interesting language that surrounds it. We've walked through Arthur's rather eye-opening experience, haven't we?
We certainly have.
We've tried to clear up some common confusion around terms like nearsightedness and farsightedness, and we've unpacked the meaning behind idioms like blind as a bat and those useful everyday phrases like make out and head on out.
Indeed. And as we usually do, we'll leave you with a final thought to sort of mull over, building on this theme of sight. The source material we looked at actually posed this specific question as a challenge. What is the technical term for the condition where someone can't distinguish between certain colors, like maybe reds and greens or blues and yellows? Think about that particular visual challenge. How is it different from just having blurry vision like Arthur? And what does its existence tell us about just how complex and multifaceted our sense of sight really is? Something to ponder.